There you use shot again.
That's the
Make sure you use the
controller that can be likes to follow.
It's nice.
or junction. That's nice here.
Reading.
Well, those are always there. Yeah, but it is how it's spread. What's the spread?
16.
Like the one right here. I don't know what it is. It's hard to tell on the game camera.
Cameras make.
I know. You should have that Louisiana.
The city,
That Louisiana.
yeah, but he made that.
It's like a spread around 7 to 16. Yes.
It's been-
That's the one.
I think you have to buy it.
I'm waiting for it.
Oh, yeah. We have one coming here. It's the son.
But let's do it. He had.
I think he's an officer. I can't believe the bullets always carries. Actually, I love that one.
Doesn't like it. I don't like
They kill these kids.
Our friend is like-
Go look at
Good team from around the county, just in my part. About what it
I just said A, B, so I can get an answer. I thought he'll obviously give me.
I was barking about the bill, stuff. I'll try to just all.
All better
shots.
I could go through his.
Don't say.
Look, when was asked, he'll see what they did to it.
We did just. I did.
I had an attorney, one of my fellows, signed mine for that.
Look at Tiller. I mean, let's make fun of Tiller.
To get bigger.
I think they're showing up. They show up 3:30 and 4:02. And that's what I'm saying. They show up at the. God, they're so late. See, they gotta do like.
Oh, there's a version of it that was attached to the agenda. It would have heard that as well, but. I didn't see it.
That's a good dance. Yeah.
Do we have to make-
Are there sign-up sheets?
Yes. Always.
I did it. I can go.
Right there. Yes, comments.
Cameron.
Thank you, Lee.
It's never gonna know, because you're changing all the time.
You gonna speak?
I don't think we have.
Email me sentiments.
You.
So. Linda. Not sure. That's it. Thanks so much.
No, we will not be doing that. We asked for a continuance.
Under the table, remember, under the table. No, I don't want to know.
Sorry.
Nobody wants to look at your son.
It's not there.
He left them all in here.
I think there's a.
No, I don't.
What do you?
You are just a hot.
Have a pen?
Yeah.
Maybe.
The rubber band. Now we're gonna have rubber bands.
Yeah, when you're in, like, just wait a second.
Yeah.
You gonna do it?
Oh, no, that's bad.
I already said.
We used to have. That's Stanford. We used to have their class. Yeah. It's.
Too late. Late.
Yeah.
The process.
Mine looks okay. So if I want to be back to baby. Try to fit through the drive station. Hello.
I didn't have to. So I have to take a look. Let us do it.
President Burkett.
Still can't.
Good thing out.
We ready? Notice is hereby given of a special meeting of the Galveston County Consolidated Drainage District on December 2nd, 2024 at 11 a.m. at the district's office located at 1605 Whitaker Drive, Friendsburg, Texas. Call the meeting to order. I guess we'll be in a roll call. Need a roll call?
Yes.
Roll call of the board.
Yes, please.
Okay, roll call of the board. Jason Jones, Kim,
Kim.
Trustee Burkett, David Johnson.
Jim Gibson.
I don't have the invocation. Heavenly Father, thank you for this day. Thank you. I hope everybody had a wonderful Thanksgiving and time off. I pray for a celebration of the birth of your son in December, for everybody's safety, for happiness and joy, and just worshiping you as our Lord and Savior. It's in your name we pray. Amen.
It's to the republic for which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Texas flag, pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one indivisible.
All right, citizens' comments. Members of the public are invited to give comments at this time. There's sign-up sheets in the back. If you haven't done so yet, please do so. Lasting no longer than 3 minutes. Comments may be general in nature or may address a specific agenda item and should not be directed at the entire board. Please state your name and your address.
Good morning. My name is Wayne Hale. I live at 904 Applewood Drive in Sweet, Texas. My home is immediately adjacent to the existing drainage ditch, and I live next to the new subdivision that's going in. And I just wanted to note to the board that I did pay my property taxes this morning, so I thought GCCDD, yeah. I have lived in my house 36 years. During that time, we've had numerous tropical rain events and floods. And my house, I'm happy to report, has never flooded. Thank you to the great and diligent service of the drainage district who maintaining coast in my house. But I have to admit that I am concerned as I see the new property going in, transforming what was a pasture and its water retention capability into a new subdivision. Not that I'm opposed to a new subdivision, but I am concerned because I see lots and lots of dirt moving into that property, raising the elevation, which causes me a great deal of concern about where the drainage is going to go the next time. Yeah. I don't have a lot of expertise in drainage. I greatly depend on this body and the staff to do a good job, to do a good drainage plan to ensure that my home will continue to be flood free. I just wanted to express that appreciation, first of all, for what has been done and my concern about what's going on there. So I heard that the same due diligence. So I say.
Thank you, Mr. Hill. Deborah Cheney.
I live at 1008 Applewood. And I am the president of the Wilderness Trails HOA. I just wanted to express that we're having a meeting tomorrow night. It's over Zoom. But there's a lot of concern within the neighborhood about flooding. We've had flooding in the front. We've had some flooding over off of Blueberry, a couple of, homes. But I too have lived on Applewood Drive since 1990. And we have never had a flood at all. The water has never come up onto our front lawn. It's been in the streets. And we have not been able to, at times, leave the neighborhood, but we've never flooded. And my biggest concern is, why has the city not required the developer to have a drainage plan in place? I don't really understand how that's happened. A lot of us have often thought that the drainage district is, a very powerful entity, and that they control a lot of, drainage issues in the city. And yet we've got this development going on, and I don't see a drainage plan. And I wonder why, how that has happened. And so, is the city just blatantly ignoring the drainage district? Or does the drainage district give their advice, but they don't really have control over development? I'm also concerned about the high school with the new building going in. Was there a drainage plan in place for that? That's something that I didn't look into. But all the people that are on Castlewood that are facing the high school, I'm concerned about flooding that might occur there, since the parking lot, the building, so there's been so much building and expansion. And now that we're going to have the parkway behind us, in addition to the subdivision, how much cement is going in with that parkway? I know that when the trees were cut down, the last storm that we had, the wind in my backyard was terrible. I never experienced wind like that in all the years, that we've lived there. But it just, no trees, and shoo. So as the president and as a resident of Wilderness Trails, I'm very concerned about those homes flooding. And if they do flood, and they've never flooded before, there's going to be a lot of upset. A whole lot of upset. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to move on number 5, administrative hearing regarding notice of the GCCDD 11-001. Case reference is 30 Wilderness Trails. Administrative hearing regarding 30 Wilderness Trails, Frederick, Texas, otherwise described as abstract 83, 128, page 2, 3, Apple and Jackson, tract 338.443 acres. The respondent may appear before the district at this time, place in person, any attorney or by its officer, the director or managing partner, to respond to allegations of violations of provisions of the district's criteria manual as adopted by the board according to Texas Water Code, Chapter 49. Civil penalties may be assessed by a majority vote of the board. The district and the respondent may both present witness or evidence. Any video or photo media shall be submitted at least 48 hours before the hearing to the district administrative manager, Kathy Grace. The penalties are awarded. The respondent shall have 30 days to pay any fees, including any reasonable and necessary attorney fees for which evidence has been presented and the board has awarded.
All right, good morning. Thank you so much. My name is Paige Bailey. I'm the district's attorney. As the respondent is not here, and the notice has been sent by certified mail, return receipt requested to both the property owner and the contractor doing the actual development. You'll just hear from the district side today. I'm going to walk you through both the typical process for development, the historical background on the property, the specific allegations of the drainage criteria manual that we believe have been violated, as well as our recommendation for the fines per violation per day that have occurred since development has begun, as well as the attorney's fees incurred as of today. So I'm going to start by presenting my witness, Scott Sheridan, who is the district's engineer. Could you please introduce yourself, please?
Scott Sheridan, district engineer, get the review and approve plans as they're submitted, or review and make recommendations to the board for consideration or approval. Responsible for putting together design criteria manual and updates, working with the board for that and staff and the city. So,
And how long have you been the district's engineer?
since 2021.
And in your time as the district's engineer and before your time there, what has been your interaction with this property?
I have done on the private side, past before I was a district engineer, I've done a couple of designs on that property for subdivisions for the original owner, Dickie Arn, back in 2010. Looked at for another developer a few years ago.
And in those plans for development, what sort of drainage was envisioned for it in order to not affect the nearby properties, the drainage systems that are currently in place, the nearby neighborhoods?
Yeah, so it's changed through the years, right? This criteria has changed, but originally there's always been an on-site pond. And then with the last iteration, there's some, the city requires floodplain mitigation for the 500-year floodplain. And there's some shaded zone X, which is a 500-year floodplain located on the front of that property. So the pond and the detention rates have increased, so it took up more room in the latest iteration that we looked at several years ago.
And for those who might not know what shaded zone X means, does that mean that there are increased standards related to that section of the property?
There are from the floodplain management standpoint, which the city is the floodplain manager of the city. They require floodplain mitigation for the 100-year, any field placed in the 100-year or 500-year floodplain, which is zones AE and shaded zone X. So you get that.
Okay. And what is the typical process for development in regards to the district?
So when you're in the district's jurisdiction, the typical process is there is a pre-development meeting that the city has, and on the private side, I always recommend my clients do that, right? And the district does get to be a part of that. Usually they invite Joseph. Joseph will bring me if he feels like it's necessary.
Mm-hmm.
I go there, make sure you have all your, a full understanding of what's going to be required. The preliminary plan and plat process could be submitted simultaneously to the district and to the city or cities if you're in the city. We could approve the preliminary plan and plat without the city's approval, and vice versa. But when we get to the final plan or plat approval, we require a letter of no objection from the city. And then typically they require our, GCD signed plans and plats to be placed or approved by them. That's been the process since I've worked here professionally, in the district, which was 2005-ish. And what I've seen, the past 3 or 4 years being the district engineer.
At what point in time in that process should construction actually begin?
Yeah, so our district notes are very clear for the plat and plans. It specifically says that there should be no construction started without an approved drainage plan. And then there's also a note, number 1, that states that the district should be contacted 48 hours prior to commencing construction, and then upon completion for final inspection. So I know this is pitched as a fill permit, but earlier it was pitched as just a clearing and grubbing. Now they're placing fill, so it's I feel like the district needs to be involved in it.
And may you bring up the drainage criteria manual for us to all look at? Okay, and may we zoom in a bit?
Sure.
All right, we'll start with introduction of the drainage criteria manual. So the drainage criteria manual, is it your understanding that this is the regulations submitted and approved by the drainage district?
Yes, ma'am.
And what authority does the drainage district have in regards to enforcing its regulations?
Well, anything that has an impact on the water surface elevations for the creeks, tributaries that they're responsible for maintaining in their jurisdiction. They have the right to enforce any kind of restrictions or development restrictions or reviewing what's going on.
And the policy of the district, it's net zero runoff, is that correct?
No impact to any downstream or neighboring property or upstream.
And what does that mean in terms of construction?
So any kind of modification of land, you can impact the, how fast the water's running off, how fast it's infiltrating in the property, right? And so it can impact the receiving streams or storm sewer drains, all those.
Would adding, for example, 100,000 cubic yards of fill affect runoff?
Yes.
And if we're visualizing 100,000 cubic yards of fill, what does that look like visually? Is that how many trucks of dirt goes?
So on a 12-yard dump truck, good contract told us you get 6 to 8 yards after you consider the fluff that comes out of it. So it's about 12,500 truckloads there, more or less, so it's a lot.
12,500 truckloads?
Yes.
Okay. And I'm not pulling these numbers out of thin air. What is your understanding for how much fill the property owners are bringing in?
According to Samantha's discussion, I think with the city that they were going to limit them to 100,000 yards of dirt, cubic yards of dirt.
100,000 cubic yards of dirt. So 12,000 trucks of dirt coming into the property.
Correct.
Okay. So we go to the requirements for construction, pre-development review. Has that been completed with the property owner Lone Star and or the contractor Tanos with the district?
Not that I know. We've had discussion on some variances, and whatnot, on an actual pre-development meeting with the city or anything like that, right, Joseph? No.
So no?
No.
Okay. Submittal, have they submitted any copies of plans, reports, calculations submitted as regards to the current construction?
No, no construction.
Fees, have they paid any fees to the district?
No,
No. Okay. Site visit, have they scheduled any site visits with the district?
not to my knowledge.
Have they submitted the data that's required for the NGS benchmarks? No. Okay. Preliminary plot review, have they submitted any preliminary plots for review?
I mean,
Have they submitted any of these requirements for existing drainage structures, utility lines, pipelines, anything?
no, ma'am.
No, ma'am. Have they submitted final plat review?
They have submitted variance requests, my project, for an old iteration of the plan. Right, those were denied by the board back in April, I believe. So
Okay.
that's it. No,
So back in March, April timeframe, they submitted for 2 variances.
correct,
Those were denied.
correct.
Does that exempt them from following any of the procedures that I've gone through thus far? The preliminary plat review, the pre-development meeting, the site inspections?
No, ma'am.
Great. Well, not great, but. And then final plat review. Has there been any final plats reviewed by the district in regards to the current development?
No, ma'am. We don't review final plats or plans until we obtain preliminary plat or plan approval.
Which hasn't been done.
Correct.
Pre-application meetings. Have they had any pre-application meetings with either the operations manager or yourself as the district's engineer?
We've had discussion on the phone about the variances. But other than that, there's been nothing since the variances have been denied, so I have no idea.
No idea. Okay. What has been your communications with the developer thus far?
So the board wanted to meet with the developer, several weeks ago. I was asked to make contact with the engineer that submitted the variances. I sent an email on the 13th noting such, and a follow-up email on the 14th, and received a response from the engineer to contact the developer, email the developer in a response, and in a separate email, he responded back the same day, and he did call me as well. We had a discussion, and he asked me to send, he asked, do I need to read the email?
Could you?
Yes. God, thank you for taking my call. From what I'm aware of, I have a permit from the city of Friendswood for stockpile of soil on our property at Wilderness Trails. After speaking with my engineering firm, the final plans are to be submitted within the next 2 weeks for the city review and then drainage district for the overall development. To my knowledge, I have followed every procedure required of me to move forward with the clearing of my site and stockpile of soils. I have an approved plan and permit issued by the city of Friendswood. I am out of the floodplain or associated areas.
And just from that small email there, does it seem like they are aware that the district has regulations that may apply to them?
Yes.
Does it seem like they're following them at all?
No, ma'am.
Does their interactions with the city preclude them from having to go through our processes?
No, ma'am.
And is it your belief that they've essentially completely disregarded the district and all of their regulations?
Yes.
We've got some pictures to look at as well. Can you pull them up? A little bit,
Swear that we see copyright.
right there. Okay, so how are you able to identify this property from that picture?
This is the district's 33-acre detention facility. This is the creek along here. There's a pipeline right away, and there's an unopened road right away.
And enclosed in the giant yellow circle, what is that property there?
That is the property at Wilderness Trails. I think it's 30 Wilderness Trails that's being cleared and killed right now.
And could you zoom in a bit more?
I'm not sure if it's
As
going to
close
let
as
me.
we can
Yeah,
get.
it's as close as this. I think so.
And the photographer of that photo is actually sitting in this room as well. President Burkett, do you recognize this photograph?
I do.
And how are you able to do so?
That's coming off my left wing coming into Poly Ranch
And how did you take this photo?
with an iPhone.
And does it appear to have any alterations, solutions, revisions to it since you took it, other than the giant yellow?
I have hundreds of photos. It's just one of many.
And what has been your experience with this property and development thus far?
It just continues to bring in dirt. I've seen it since they've cleared it. Just more and more fill has been coming in, whether it's coming in through the back, through the oil fields, the Baker Road side, or it's coming, actually, some of it's actually coming down through the neighborhood a little bit. I get pictures every once in a while from the neighbors of it coming through the Castlewood, the gate right there where it says no construction through traffic.
And from your experience on this board, what do you believe the effect is of ginormous amounts of filter going into that property on the district's jurisdictional waterways?
I rely on Scott on the calculations and back up with Samantha. But there's no doubt without any approved preliminary drainage plan, I have some questions for Scott. Without any calculations, preliminary plans and stuff, I mean, logic tells you it's not good, but you really don't know because there's been no preliminary drainage plan put in place. There's been no calculations on the fill and what that will do. If we were to have a major storm event or a rain event right now, there should be a mitigation plan in place, I believe, during the construction. All these things should have been discussed with the district, in my opinion, before you even clear land in this part of the area. I mean, I'll be clear, we're in Friendswood, Texas. We're the poster child for CNN International. We have these big storms. We flood here, just like the forest in Northern California burns. They don't issue fire permits up there without a lot of mitigation, a lot of rules. They probably don't issue them at all. In Friendswood, Texas, we should probably have an approved drainage plan, plat, and a very, very comprehensive plan in place before we clear land for development. We should probably know how much water the trees and the native grasslands, how much it's going to offset, how the runoff is going to occur, how we're going to disrupt flow, elevations. There's lots of it that goes into it. And of course, I have a district engineer. I have some apparatus now to advise us on that. We just don't have any of that information.
Is it even possible to do rudimentary back of the napkin calculations with just a raw number of 100,000 cubic yards of fill to even begin calculating what kind of mitigations you'll need in order to?
Well, we don't know exactly where the floodplain is. They're gonna have to mitigate, and you don't necessarily mitigate every piece of dirt that comes in. So no, it's not that easy. My concerns is that I know that the drainage area divide for the creek is north of that property. And if you're placing fill up there and you have no way of bypassing it, then you're blocking flows of other properties. Plus, probably moving water off your site a lot quicker, just, looking at it from a basic standpoint, right?
Yeah. Precisely. And Mr. Johnson, what has been your interactions with this property, this developer? I believe you've conducted your own site visit, is that correct?
Yeah, I guess it was a week ago, Friday, we got back in town and saw they were filling trucks out of the site on 528 with that amount of fill, which brought my attention, where they're going with that. So I drove around and they were bringing the trucks in through the north off 2351. I followed them in there, then took video, and they were dumping the fill. My experience is that they usually do fill, cut and fill concurrently. They're hauling the cut out and bringing the fill in. In this case, they haven't cut much and they're just bringing the fill in. And so I'm worried about the grade. I've heard there was going to be a cut and fill.
We're good?
Should we get
Okay. Could you please continue?
Yes. It brings, we have the responsibility and authority to provide proper drainage and to approve these requests for drainage plans. And we've seen none. Like I said, just from a construction background, typically you cut and fill. Trucks haul the cut out and they're bringing fill back in. This contractor, who I think is a very fine young man, been around, I think he's a stand-up guy. He's delighted because he gets to handle material 3 times. And I guess since it's a TERS, it's 100% reimbursed. So it's not a bad contract for a dirt contractor. I'm delighted for him, but I'm more worried about the street flooding that's occurred over in y'all's neighborhood. And I guess really what concerns me is I haven't seen much cut. I've seen deforestation, but I haven't seen much cut. And so that leads me to believe that, and I haven't seen an elevation plan, so I really don't know what their plans are. And I think that with our overall view of, we haven't updated the criteria at all. All we're doing is enforcing what's been on the books. And so I just feel like the city's let him get away with it. I don't know what's going on there. If there's, pictures with monkeys or what, but he's subject to the same laws that we are. And anyway, after a tour of the facility, I've watched them. We filmed it. They're dumping the fill. It's nice looking fill. I don't understand the lack of construction management in the process.
And I'd like to play some of the videos that you took. What device did you use to take the videos?
I used a cell phone. I just rolled down the road that they had rolled to have access of the dump trucks off of 51.
How many trucks did you see coming in and out in just the short time that you were there?
I think I followed a couple of trucks in. There was a couple behind me. I probably saw 5 or 6 trucks while I was there for 20 minutes.
And do you see trucks coming in and out of there often? How much visual inspection have you had of the property?
I've been over there quite a bit. My son and his wife have a property next door. And so I go by and look at his house and progress on their house. And our neighbors, let us know when there's equipment showing up. And they showed up with equipment. They showed up with a street sweeper, which they showed up with a large dozer, the street sweeper to clean up the clods off the dirt after he dropped the dozer off the low boy. They had rollers. It was obvious they were repairing a road to be able to bring these trucks in.
So between the fill, the plans for impervious surfaces, the plans for road, the plans for development, all of this would be something that would require district's approval essentially.
Yes, and actually after they deforested the place on Good Friday, we had a pretty significant rain come in, and I have a video standing on, I got it from my son's wife, of water pouring off that property onto my son's property. Of course, they had soil erosion protection, which is when you get that kind of rain, which is worthless. But I'd be happy to provide that. Yes, the answer is yeah, they're not in compliance.
Scott, what would be the point of the soil retention and the different types of mechanisms to keep the soil? Would that have any effect on keeping it from affecting the runoff into the district's drainage systems?
Well, the filter fabric fence is more or less to deal with stormwater quality, right? Keep us from silting in roadside ditches or it getting into the main tributary of the creek there and creating issues where we're taking volume away from conveyance and storage in the creek, right? The silt that is. And biologically, it's not good to have that many organics in your water too.
So it's filtration. It doesn't actually stop anything from running off.
Correct. Yeah, it's not there to stop anything from running off. It's there to keep soil from being moved. Dispersion.
Page, if I can offer additional for both. So Saturday, from the Terrace One property at 528, 3518 down 2351, there is not a moment you weren't next to a dump truck. The only reason you couldn't keep up with them is they're going through town at the rate they do. So you figure from 6 in the morning till 6 at night, that route nonstop all day through town back and forth. And for perspective on his, before it's asked later, there's no notice of trespass. There's no notice of private property. There's no do not enter, so David entering the property doesn't cause any issues like that. But Scott, what he spoke about at a meeting in the spring, or late spring, early summer, the water they saw off Apple Blossom, the water they saw that they've never seen before, the contributing factor could have been all of that runoff getting into the underground passageways for the water, and so the water couldn't drain because it could have been mudded in. I don't know that for a fact, but it was a thought. And when you see it freely, exiting the way it is, you've lost all of the friction, all the absorptive properties, everything that property would naturally do. And then I think of Jennifer's backyard, how quickly the water came up onto the back of her property. Now, just to what we'll call north of, as far as map wise, it's a hard, flat surface. Every bit of water runs in every direction instead of those natural barriers. And since there's been no drainage added prior, all of that, you worry in her situation, you worry about Apple Blossom's situation.
You mean Applewood?
I didn't mean to, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
The first time I said it was that. So I just wanted to add a little bit on both of what they said.
Excuse me, James, is it all right to ask a question
Yes, please.
about the video?
Yes, sir.
Scott, as I understood, you said that the city had issued a permit for stockpiling.
That's my understanding. Yes.
Okay, looking at the video, is that the normal picture of stockpiling? Or is that a picture of raising the grade?
That, to me, looked like they had a sheets foot roller out there as well, right? And,
That's what I thought.
yeah, so they're compacting and rolling in and getting in lifts, right, and getting ready to put more fill on top of it. But usually, if you're stockpiling, you don't want to compact it because it makes it more difficult to remove, right? And you're just wasting time and resources doing that.
One confirmed.
Good point.
Good question, Jim.
Scott and/or any of the members of the board, what is the earliest date at which you have noticed construction on the property?
Nobody for sure.
It was Good Friday. I know Good Friday, they pretty much tore it down Good Friday.
Started.
Clearing.
Yes. I believe the date in May has been thrown around. What was noticed in May?
The property being cleared. I believe the property was cleared around before Easter a little bit, like they're saying. So we're talking and the clearing taking place sometime back then. I think Kathy's gonna grab something that might have a note on it or something.
And Scott, would you believe that clearing property for development is part of the construction process?
Yes,
And that would need to be something that would have been regulated by the district as well?
absolutely.
So that would be the earliest date of construction in violation of the district's regulations?
Right.
Okay, May 31st approximately?
I think earlier, if we're talking around Easter.
Yeah.
Easter?
Way back to this.
Somewhere in late April or
Late April. That's what
I believe our administrative manager, Ms. Grace, is gonna grab a note that she has that has a date that she noticed the clearing happening. So if we'll hold on for that note there.
Well, and while we wait,
Yes.
and Jim, you've been on the board a long time. Rusty's been on a few years. Scott's been here a while. I know all up and down Friendswood Lakes Parkway, all of these things were followed with legacy development, Avalon, Sterling, Friendswood Lakes, Friendswood Trails. This is not a new process. Nothing has changed since we got on the board in May. These aren't new standards. These are all well documented and well known. I know developers all across the area do this in this order. Can you remember a developer ever just completely thumbing their nose at the entire process? Just the district being completely cut out.
No.
Is there precedence for this at all?
No.
It hasn't happened in our Lake City portion. Obviously Westland Ranch and Legacy followed the process.
Joseph, more history than I'm not aware of it.
I'm not aware of no.
Can I ask a question?
Would you?
Sure. Go ahead.
Does anybody know where they're getting the fill from?
There's one. 528. by
Okay,
the church, the development just
Okay.
over the creek.
so that's dirt that they're digging out, okay. Glad it's not from Brio.
It's downstream. As far as TCEQ monitoring of fill, I know a lot of fill was brought in off 2351 by the high school. All of it had to be lit because it was tested. It did have Brio contamination. When fill is brought in to the district from out of district, is there a standard policy for testing that?
No.
Is there one with the city, Samantha?
Not that I know of.
Why I asked.
So with Kathy getting that, I mean, the thing is, Yeah.
March
yeah,
29th.
March 29th is about the time when this occurred.
It's Good Friday.
You know, I've been in this area my whole life. I've only been around the district for 3 years, 1 year prior to being elected in 2022, and the last 2 years. It's usually the developers and the people going and doing stuff in our area are pretty good about communication with us and dealing with us with preliminary meetings, letting us know what's on their mind, things of that nature. I want to say this because it's been bandied about. I'm not here. The board, this board's, I like to let them talk because they're smart, but nobody is here to run counter to the city of Lake City or the city of Friendswood. We're here to provide what I call checks and balances in case, you know, somebody gets out of their box or lane and it's just so egregious that it just needs to be looked at from a common sense standpoint. Common sense tells you in this area, Joseph, I had this conversation for years. Common sense tells you when there is a big development going in, you should have pre-development meetings. You should talk about it, what's going to take place, how it's going to be mitigated before you clear and you get rid of native grasses and trees and thirsties and frictions and everything that we've talked about in this area long before I was on the board. It just makes sense. In construction, mitigation is important because, of course, it affects neighborhoods. It affects people's safety if there's a big flood, which is the most important, and then their financial well-being, and it can destroy people financially. It's happened in Friendswood. Remember where we're at. We're in Friendswood, Texas. We're the bullseye for flooding and drainage in Southeast Texas. It just makes sense to have good communication with the district, with the city of Friendswood, with the city of League City, for all these reasons that are just plain right in front of our face. So it's sad that we're in here and we're having to deal with this, but where we need to do our job, we'll do our job. And if it runs 180 degrees head on with what we think is incorrect, then that's the case. Again, like Jason said, we haven't raised any standards. We haven't changed the criteria manual dealing with this process at all. But I'll tell y'all, maybe we should. And what I'm saying is, it's already there anyway. Paige ran it down point by point. But maybe we should make it even more clear about the criteria and the qualifications for development in this area, not to impede development, just to be absolutely clear what's expected and to line it out if that's possible. We'll probably look into that. So.
That's a question, so.
Yes, ma'am. Could you hold on real fast?
Yeah.
Okay. I have another question for Scott. So Scott, we've talked about this and don't let me forget you.
Okay.
We've talked about just the mitigation. Scott was right. We denied a variance of a preliminary drainage plan, a straight wall design, a deep pit back in April, I believe, of 2024. It was a 5-0 vote of the old board before the new board was set and elected in May. We never got to the point where we've seen a plat. We haven't got to the point where we've heard from anybody, whether it be the development or the city or anybody, about mitigation of that parkway coming through. Where is, and Scott and I've talked about this, where is the mitigation of the parkway and the road going to go? So we don't have a plan for the neighborhood. We don't have a plat for the neighborhood. There was a TRO and a settled lawsuit about moving the road. So now the road's moved. So the plat's going to change, what I understand. And we know nothing.
I would like to add one other thing. The district recently coordinated with the city and Harris County Flood Control District to apply for an engineering design grant on the Wickham tract, which is the tract in question. And well, it's, you know, it's where the dirt is coming from. And so I think that's another reason why we need to be involved in this discussion, because that's part of the application that we put together. They always want to know like where the fill's coming from, where the fill's going.
Right.
Well, the greater point is, just running all this down is before we start clearing land in the Galveston County Consolidated Drainage District areas, I think we should have a comprehensive A to Z plan on how the process is going to commence. That is not even remotely crazy. And if I'm sorry, if the city of Friendswood or anybody thinks that's crazy, or anybody else, I think it's doing our job in this area. And I think it's as simple as that. You have a question, yes, ma'am?
Thank you. My question is, we're all here together. We all realize that they only have so far a stockpiling permit, correct? That's the only thing they have ever permitted for. Is that correct? Stockpiling. What they're doing is not stockpiling. They're already filling, leveling, and change the drainage. How can we stop that today? It shouldn't be. What power do we have to stop it today?
We'll probably address that later. Okay, thank you. Paige, go ahead.
The point of today's meeting is for the board to decide whether violations have occurred, and if they have occurred, to assess a fee. The district is authorized to assess up to $1,000 per violation per day. I have identified and was noticed to the property owner and the developer 14 distinct violations that I believe have occurred. I believe that I presented to you at least a preponderance of evidence that those things have occurred. I ask for you to find, and I'm trying to be fair. And I'm asking that you find the maximum penalty for each violation that has occurred per day. So that's $14,000 per day since the earliest that we have believed construction has occurred. And I believe that Mr. Jones has done the math on that. And it's an extraordinary number, but it's extraordinary for a reason. And the reason is because we want to make a point that the district cannot be ignored, and that our people matter, our properties matter, and that we do not want to continue flooding because of blatant disregard for the district and its regulations. I also ask that you find attorney's fees that have been incurred up to today at a rate of $215 per hour for approximately 15 hours to compensate the district for the time that has had to be put in up until this point. Now, the district, after this point, should these fees not be paid, and we will discuss this greatly later. If these do not be paid within 30 days, the district has the ability to enforce them in court, as well as to seek other remedies such as a TRO, and which that is up to the county to decide if they'd like to do so. And so after this point, if staff has no other things to share and the board has no other comments to make, I recommend that the board goes briefly into a closed session to decide what they would like to do with today's hearing. And I'll give you the findings form that has been prepared. And then afterwards, we can reconvene and we can share what the board has decided.
Does anybody on the board have anything else to add? Start with the board. Staff members first. Joseph, anything?
Nothing.
Samantha?
Just going to read this because I think it summarizes what's going on. Adding fill reduces the storage capacity of the floodplain. This alters water pathway and pushes water into areas not previously in the water course, which leads to flood risks in communities downstream and upstream. It also slows water absorption and changes floodway flood zones significantly.
Scott?
Nothing.
Jim?
No.
David? That's Kim?
I just know back from Beryl, the pictures that I saw from Beechwood that were posted on Facebook where there was significant water in the streets. It's coming off of that land. So it's definitely moving water in places that hadn't been before.
Jason?
So enough.
The board will recess into closed session as authorized by Title 5, Chapter 551 Government Code, Texas Open Meetings Act. Section 551.071, consultation with the attorney regarding a matter in which the duty of the attorney under the Texas District Rules of Professional Conduct of the Texas conflicts with the Open Meeting Act, or B, pending or contemplated litigation.
You gotta count.
Yeah.
You're down.
Okay, we're gonna recommend open session. I'm gonna kick it over to our attorney to read the decision, and then we'll pick it up from there. Go ahead, Paige.
Okay, on this day, second day of December 2024, the Gallatin County Consolidated Drainage District has held a hearing regarding the case reference 30 Wilderness Trails, notice number GCCDD 11-001. And the board hereby finds that by a preponderance of evidence that 14 sections of the drainage criteria manual have been violated, including 2A, 2B, 2C, 2D, 2E, 2F, 2G, 2H, 2I, 2J, 2K, 2L, 2M, 2T, and 4A, as noticed in the correspondence sent to the property owner and developer on November 18th, 2024. The board hereby assesses the civil penalties of $1,000 for each section found to be in violation. The number of violations totals 14, and the number of days the violations have occurred since April 2nd, 2024, which is the day that the city of Friendswood had issued the earthworks permit, which is 244 days, results in the total civil penalties of being assessed of $3,416,000. And then pursuant to the Water Code 49-0.004, the district also finds the reasonable necessary attorney's fees in connection to this hearing to date is $215 per hour times 15 hours of time spent, an additional $3,225, which means a combined total of $3,419,225 to be paid within 30 days from the date of this hearing, which is December 30th, 2024.
Okay, do I have a motion to discuss and accept the findings of the board?
Motion.
Second. Jim, any discussion?
No.
David? No, sir. Kim?
It's all been laid out.
Okay. All those in favor of supporting the statement as rendered by the board, say aye. Aye. All those opposed? So it'll be 5-0. That concludes the meeting at the Gallatin County Consolidated Drainage District. Thanks y'all for coming. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion. Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Thank y'all.
If your signature is